literally, as the crow flies, I am about 2.2 miles from the bridge fire, very close. So we are on level 2, get ready and get set, but we're not on the, get out of Dodge yet. So um, that's a particular concern to most of us here, and including the fact that my brother and his family and my youngest daughter both live in the mountains in the affected area. So I've been busy since the weekend helping with packing up stuff and getting people into safe places. The good news is we're all safe, Rob.
Good. That's most important of anything. I mean, Chris, you don't have anything going on up in Central California, do you?
Nope, it's all nice here in Chico. As a matter of fact, we're having some very nice, moderate, below average temperatures. No fires. Yeah, I'm quite happy where I'm at. You also had an earthquake down there in Southern California. Did you feel it?
Yes, Chris, we did. It was fairly mild here where I was at, but 4.7, I think it was 5.1 at first, then 4.9, and I think it settled out at 4.7. It was centered just off the coast in Malibu, about 7 miles deep. And we just felt a little short jolt. We didn't feel the 17-second good shake that they did out on the West Coast there.
Well, I feel for all my former neighbors down there in Southern California that's been dealing with fires and triple-digit temperatures and power shutoffs, and now an earthquake.
Oh, I'm glad you're all safe. That's the most important factor.
Yes, and Southern California people are hardy folk. They have to be.
Well, Chris, I'll let you start off with telling us what's the best thing or worst thing that's happening in California with water right now, aside from the fires.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of attention on the endangered species regulations and the requirements that they put on the water projects. There's been a lot of debate for the past couple of weeks about this action that's known as Fall X2, which has a kind of a weird sounding name, but basically you have the salt water coming in from San Francisco Bay, and you have the fresh water pushing out from the rivers in California. And at some point, you have the salty water mixing with the fresh water, and X2 is a measure of when the saltiness of water gets to a certain level that is good for the certain types of fish that like that type of environment. And very much how much water you release from the reservoirs affects where that X2 line is in the delta. And if you don't release a lot of water from the reservoirs, then there's not a lot of water pushing back the salt water from the bay, and so that water pushes in. And the habitat, is wherever that X2 line is, and if it's in farther into the delta, then it can really be in an area that isn't very good habitat for fish. So while the salinity is good for the fish, the salinity in the water where it is not. It's in the middle of a channel with riprap, on the sides of the levees and stuff, and where it really needs to be is out in a place known as Sassoon Marsh, which is further out towards the bay, and it's a marsh, and that's where the fish like to be. So they have an action that they call Fall X2, which is to release water from the reservoirs to push that salinity habitat out to the marsh. This is a requirement that they put in. I think it's been in there for about 5 years or so. It is not required every year, but it is required in some years when there is a certain level of water in the reservoirs, and so that's kind of what we have this year. So they're getting ready to release this water. The the hard thing about this fall X2 action is that studies have not shown that it's particularly effective. I mean, it's not detrimental, but it's not necessarily making any more delta smelt. And this is an action that is for the delta smelt, which is pretty much extinct anyway. So there's a lot of argument about whether they should do this action or not. And I think that the agencies are to a point where they are considering what they're going to do, but I haven't heard that they're not going to do it. But I think that they are taking in all the comments that have come in about this, and we have congressmen coming out from Washington, D.C. They had a field hearing on California water back the end of last week in San Anela, which is right there sort of in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley. And they had a field hearing where they discussed these regulations, which the farmers feel are very onerous, and they're keeping them from having the water that they need to irrigate their fields.
Well, Chris, there's the other side of the argument here from the question that, a lot of people are going to be asking with releasing all this water is, quote, is California wasting water? I got a chance to watch that clip that you put up on Maven's Notebook. And listeners, if you get a chance, click on the little play button there on Maven's Notebook to watch that, because it was a pretty good clip. And then it struck me really hard, Chris, when they quantified it, right? Because they said how much water, and it's 114 billion gallons. That's a lot of water.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I should actually do some math here, because we generally don't talk about large volumes of water as gallons, in gallons.
Right, acre feet, yeah.
Yeah, it's really acre feet, and
right.
and an acre feet is the depth to cover an acre of land to 1 foot in water. That's and I don't know how many gallons are in an acre foot, but I'm going to guess there's quite a bit. So sometimes, I could whip out my calculator and figure it out, but it would take me too much time. But it's not. I think it's only about 200,000 acre feet, I think, is what it is. But that's just my recollection from stories that I've read. So putting things in gallons is a good way to sort of trump it up a little bit, but it's not a lot of water, in comparison to what some of these movements of water are. But nonetheless, it is significant. It's an amount of water that a farmer could certainly use. Several farmers could probably use. So, it's not insignificant, but it's also not, jaw-dropping. They're not going to empty a reservoir to do this.
Right. Well, there's 326,000
Oh, you're doing
gallons
the math.
in 1 acre feet. So when you look that up, when you do the math, that's I'll have to do the math. I didn't do it, but just quickly, it'd be about 350,000 acre feet. So
yeah, I mean it's not a huge amount.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
you consider
right.
Lake Oroville stores 3.5 million acre feet, Shasta even more than that. But it's also not insignificant either.
Yeah,
I mean that there's a good sized city could live on that for for a year. A good sized city. I was up in Reno at my parents' house, and their water department put out a little survey that you signed online and that you took to answer questions. And I was actually surprised to hear that the Reno-Sparks area uses water about 225,000 acre feet. And that's pretty darn reasonable for a town of that size. So, I just thought that was interesting. So it's not an insignificant amount. And the big issue is, it's that does it do any good to release this water?
Sure.
And they don't really have any signs that it is. So, studies have not shown it. I mean, I don't think the studies say that it doesn't do anything, but it's certainly not doing much, especially given the fact that the Delta smelt are pretty much extinct now anyway. So
yeah. Well, let's
all the money we spent on that, and then it just died off.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we're not very good at figuring out how to save these species. The salmon's the next one up. We really.
Well, I told the story you remember years ago about I went to a meeting with Metropolitan Water, and they had another engineering or science company come in, and they said that there wasn't a shortage of that. They just measured it in the wrong, not them, but the original people measured it in the wrong place and at the wrong depth. So we don't even know if the count was correct or not. And I never saw that company, and that company was never the one that made that report about what they found. Never ever came back to another meeting with anybody. So that was kind of strange. I guess they didn't like the report.
Guess not.
Anyway, sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no problem.
Chris, did you have a heat wave up there last week, like we did down here in South? I mean, I know it wasn't as severe, but did you have pretty good warm week last week?
To be honest, not really. It was nice, and it's been nice and cool up here.
Yeah, we had this very late summer heat wave here that just ended, and I just looking on Maven's notebook yesterday, I think I read your the weather whiplash story, that was on there. Kind of ties into the wildfires a bit as well, right? Because on Monday this week, just 3 days ago, it was 113 here in Claremont where I live, and today it was 81. So just to give you an idea of how much change that has happened. But on tying it into the fires, I mean, it's just a big boon for firefighters because it's gone from very, very low relative humidity, and I mean in the teens, right? Relative humidity in the mid to upper teens, to now relative humidity in the mid to upper 50s, and cooler temperatures and no wind. And so that's really helping with the firefight. And there are 3 major fires down here happening right now, still happening. And many of them don't have containment. The bridge fire and the line fire are the biggest. And then there's one in Orange County called the airport fire. And together, over 110,000 acres burned, and almost closing in on 60 buildings, most of them single-family homes. So been a tough week.
Yeah, and my heart goes out to my fellow former neighbors all down there in SoCal, because it can't be pleasant, especially when you get power outages on top of it, everything else too. It must be very hard to deal with. Yeah, it's interesting. The story that talks about weather whiplash, points out how we like these wet seasons. They come and they bring us lots of water, but they also, fuel a lot of vegetation growth. And then when it dries out, it becomes a bigger fire danger. Another part of the fun of our weather whiplash.
Well, going to, kind of look at that a bit, because we've had 2 very wet years in the 22, 23, and then this past year, 23, 24 rain season. A lot of rain, a lot of growth in the foothills and upper elevations for the trees, where we had 2 and 3 foot high shrubs and things back, 4 or 5 years ago. Those shrubs have grown to 10, 12, and 15 feet high. And, of course, we've had a very, very hot summer, very, very hot summer. And it has really just fried all that vegetation. So there's prime fire fuel up there. And then when we had the offshore winds earlier in the week, that didn't help. The big fire here in the San Gabriel Mountains grew from 4,4700 acres all the way up to 47,000 acres in a matter of 30 hours. So and watching it grow from my backyard, watching it grow like that, it was just massive plumes of gray and black and white smoke, and of course ash everywhere. Right? I've washed my cars, I think, more times than you've had hot dinners, Chris. But
yeah. Well, you're packed, but you're packed and you're ready to go in case you have to, right?
Yeah, everything's all set up and everything's all in the car and the truck. So if we get the word, we're gone.
Yes, don't try and be firefighters, people. If they say go, go.
And
as
Chris,
a matter of fact, even go earlier if you really think it's coming your way. Go before they say go.
And Chris has his 2 prized things that he took with him: his fishing rods and his kayak.
Well, yeah. Well, you want to get your stuff packed in the car while you can.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
We had to evacuate once, and it's not fun, but you got to grab what you can, and go when you need to go.
So
I'll be ready.
So what else is new news, Chris?
Oh, let's see. What else is new? I have to sit here and look at my own website. Oh gosh. Well, we got some, few bills that are kind of working their way through. We'll see what happens. There's a bill awaiting Newsom the signature about requiring the study of microplastics in our water, in our drinking water, and in bottled water. So, that's I personally would like to see some more action on microplastics, so that's how we get things going for that. So,
there was a story in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago about a man who had a whole bunch of that in his body.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's a lot of microplastics coming into our bodies and a lot of research being done, and it's kind of very troubling, that there is plastic building up in our bodies, which this makes me, really wish that we could really start taking some action on that. But we're on track to make even more plastic this year than we've made before, so I don't know. There's a little bit of a disconnect there.
Well, I can see a bill coming in California through the legislation that they're going to make all of us recyclable now.
Yes, sure.
And they have to pay a deposit when they pick us up at the CRV thing at the hospital when we're born.
Yes, sure.
Anyway, we're at the end of our starting our commercial break. So, Chris, we thank you very much for joining us, and you stay safe where you guys are. Same both Chris's. And but one thing I always tell your listeners is please go to www.mavensnotebook.com. Become a subscriber. You get all the latest information about water every single day right on your tablet, your iPhone, your computer, or whatever. It's a great way to know more than your friends that you talk to. And you can also become a subscriber by doing the same thing. Go there and be a subscriber. She does it all alone. She does a great job. And again, I don't know how she does it with all the things that she puts on it and has it out every single morning, because I get it at 7 in the morning. So I know she's working through the night. So, Chris, thank you very much for coming on and being part of our show. We appreciate it.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Stay safe.
Have a great week, Chris.
Okay, we're going to take a little break, and then Mr. Davies is going to bring us back. So stick around for the second half. And waiting for our commercial break to start. I don't hear it. Oh, well, Chris, bring us into the second half.
Oh, all right. I just I put on mute, so I thought we were going to go to commercial break there. But all right. So everybody, we've had a guest on, Lou Bendon, a couple of weeks ago. Did a great show with us, and he's back to reprise his role here. Lou Bendon, welcome to the Water Zone a second time.
Well, thank you very much. I feel privileged.
We're glad to have you on, and we know that we've got a great second half of the show here, and you have a guest that you've brought to us today, and we're anxious to get into that conversation. But from your perspective, Lou, any updates from the last time that you were on, or maybe that you want to do before you introduce your guest?
It's just that the idea behind decarbonization of the water industry is accelerating. And the perspective that I'm hearing is from the customer seeing it as a great way to reduce their bills. And the economic benefit seems to be rising to the top of why doing this. Yes, climate change is critical, but at the end of the day, there's a benefit for the ratepayer.
All right, terrific. So why don't you? I mean, I'm just waiting for the radio host to come on here, and our engineer Eric. Eric, if you're ready, buddy, we have to pay our bills, so we're going to go to a commercial break. So if you'll play that, we'll be back in about 1 minute's time.
This fall, the partner points will add up like never before with SiteOne's Fall into Points promotion. For a limited time, earn triple points on all FX Luminaire products, as well as double points on Hunter valves, sprays, and nozzles. Hunter and FX Luminaire, industry leaders in irrigation and lighting, are here to make sure you're getting the quality and performance your projects and customers demand. Plus, for the first time ever, customers in the Hunter Preferred program will earn 100 Hunter Preferred program bonus points when they buy $1,500 or more of FX Luminaire or Hunter products at one time. Get ready to fall into points this September and October at SiteOne.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone for real this time. Sorry about the little mix-up there, but we had a little issue with timing on our commercial break. But we are back. I've just introduced Lou Bendon to you. Lou has a guest from a local water agency down in Orange County, in Molten Miguel. So, Lou, I'm going to ask you to take it away and introduce your guest, if you would.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I want to introduce to you all Lindsay Stuvik, who's the Sustainable Resources Officer at Molten Miguel Water District, where she oversees water efficiency, water resource, energy, and operational optimization projects. And for those who are not familiar with Molten Miguel, it's a medium-sized water agency in the Laguna Hills area, servicing about 170,000 people, providing drinking water and wastewater services. But for an agency their size, they are known throughout the industry for their aggressive posturing on being efficient and doing the most they can for their customers. And what's interesting is that Molten Miguel has the lowest average water bill in southern Orange County. So Lindsay has a master's degree in urban and regional planning from University of California, Irvine, a bachelor's degree in political science from California State University, Fullerton. She's a Toro lead, LA, and Switzer Environmental Fellow. She's a lot to add to this conversation. So Lindsay, welcome. Tell us why Molten Miguel is so unique and how they're able to accomplish as much as they do specific to operational efficiency, water waste, and, as it all relates to decarbonization.
Well, hello. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, so Moulton has always been a big leader in water efficiency. I think we're pretty unique down in South Orange County in that we don't have like a natural source of water just to tap into. We have to import 100% of our drinking water. And imported water comes with a really high carbon footprint. It's very resource intensive and it's expensive. And so, we've realized that there are ways to structure our finances, such as like aligning your fixed costs with your fixed revenue, your variable costs with your variable revenue. We've introduced water budget-based rate structures and developed a water efficiency fund, which we reinvest back into the community to help them be more efficient. But we've introduced a lot of measures just to help curb the import of that really expensive water source. And now we've gotten to the point where we've reduced our overall water demands by 40% since 2007. And we offset another 20% of our total demands with recycled water. So we've really done quite a bit in that area. Yeah.
Please continue.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, that's more on the water side. Even with recycling a lot of water, and we recycle. We've been recycling for 50 years here at Moulton Nickel because we've had to import water since the very beginning. And even though we are master planned and we have a full build out of our recycled water system, we still send about 4,000 acre feet a year we discharge to the ocean, and that water has a potential for beneficial reuse. And so one of the big projects that we're working on right now is an Oasis Water Resources project. And this is going to take an integrated one water approach and incorporate direct potable reuse and stormwater capture and reuse into our water supply portfolio. Which is wonderful for our local residents because we're going to have more than just one source now. And that's all on the water side. But, this all takes energy. Water is heavy. It takes a lot to convey it. We've got to find ways to mitigate our energy demands and look for ways to, as you say, like decarbonize water. And so the district was building an energy demand management system a few years ago. But we really catalyzed after we saw our energy rates go up 40% in 2022. That was something that I think we weren't expecting to see. And at that point, we started looking at, well, what are some of the low-hanging fruits? What's some of the opportunities that are out there to generate renewable energy, offset our existing demands? How can we load shift? So that way, even if we don't reduce the amount of energy, we reduce the amount of carbon intensity in our energy that we do use. And then looking for ways to mitigate peak shavings and maybe looking at like batteries and storage and microgrids as a way to, really get the most out of our projects and, help keep bills low for our customers. Because as you mentioned, we do take that very seriously. We try to maintain the lowest average water and wastewater bill for our customers. And so a lot of this is just, keeping the customer in mind. How are we going to be able to move into the 21st century with climate change, with all these different types of stressors on our systems and our source watersheds, and even economic stressors, and still be able to provide really high quality water that is, not going to break somebody's bank.
Yeah,
Stacey, this is about how you use. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I was just, Lou, I was just going to see if I could compound on that question for Stacey. Stacey, this is Chris. Welcome to the Waterstone. Glad you're here.
Lindsay.
Oh, Lindsay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I won't tell everybody what I answer to at home here. So that's all kinds of names.
And I won't ask.
Yeah. All right. So back on track again with Lindsay. My apologies, Lindsay. So listen, I got a couple of questions coming in on the chat board here. There's a few people asking this.
Sure.
And by the way, 40% reduction since 2007. That's pretty sustainable. That seems like it's been sustainable over that time. So And by the way, I just saw an article, or I think it was an article on Maven's Notebook with Chris Austin, who was just on, about the Community Roots Academy in Laguna. So you guys
Yes.
were even on the press today. That's pretty impressive as well.
Yes, thank you. That's been a wonderful partnership, and that's like the complement to decarbonizing, right? Is like the other side of sustainability is like environmental programs and our water efficiency programs. What they're highlighting there is our Naturescape program, which is really like a turf to native plant program, and we've run it now for 7 or 8 years. Community Roots Academy, they took it to scale. We were directly installing native plant landscape, ripping out turf, putting in native plant landscapes for 7 years with residents, and that's like 1,000 square feet to 2,000 square feet at a time. But Community Roots Academy, they took it to a 10,000 square foot California native plant, drought tolerant landscape. They're highlighting best practices with irrigation and stormwater capture and reuse on site, and they really have become a nice focal point for us to highlight how commercial sites can incorporate best practices for water efficiency and stormwater capture and reuse. And in fact, we featured them on our Naturescape Garden Tour, which we host every year, and you're more than welcome to join. But we put about 6 or 7 residential and commercial sites on that tour, and it's to showcase how native plants, best practice irrigation, and stormwater capture and reuse, or even like rooftop water capture and reuse, can be incorporated at those scales.
Yeah, I was my home here in Claremont. I have converted 5,600 square feet of turf. I have just sub 1/2 acre lot, and I put all native plants in there, and joined the California Botanic Garden, which used to be Santa Ana Botanic Garden, up here, and bought those plants in here. And I've gone from, oh my gosh, I've gone probably 60% in savings in water from 2021 when I started to now. Plus, I did get a rebate from Metropolitan Water District for to help defray the cost. So pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
And just add a few notes. A couple of years ago, our company where I work for, the Toro company, also sponsors the Wyland Foundation, and we donated and did a lot of rehabs over at that facility. So maybe we all three should talk and put another project together.
Cool.
We'd love to do that. We'd love to do that with you. So anyway, turn it back to
Liz. We've been offering turf rebates for 10 years now, and it's something like to your point, like if you're looking to reduce your water bill and put in a different type of plant that just doesn't have near the water requirements of turf, you can defray those costs with turf rebates. And right now we've gone after several grants. Our residents can get a $4 per square foot rebate, and we are offering a $5 per square foot rebate for our HOAs and commercial customers.
Yep, that works too. I can tell you for sure because I went from, I just looked at the data here and I didn't have it right at the tip of my tongue, but I went from almost 22,000 gallons a month down to less than 9,000 a month. So Lindsay, it works.
Yep. Excellent.
All right, Lou, sorry about that, but we took a little detour there. Right back at you.
You did, but actually that's my sweet spot because we work for water agencies trying to affect a better way to beautiful, which is basically focusing on reducing the amount of ornamental turf so that people can have their cake and eat it too. Lindsay, it seems to me that when I look at Molten Miguel, innovation seems to be a strategy as you approach reducing your carbon footprint, reducing costs for your customer, and helping them, bridge the gap and what they can do. I want to know about what the utility is doing for their own house. Because we hear, I've been in 50-some focus groups and done 800 interviews, and one of the consistent comments we got from the homeowner, the consumer, the property manager, the end user was, we want the utilities to do their part too, and walk the talk. So tell me about that, please.
Yeah, that's a great point. This district, I feel like in particular, we take efficiency very seriously, not just for helping our customers be efficient, but I like to look at water loss as another form of efficiency. So there's demand efficiency, which is our customers and helping them manage theirs, but then there's supply efficiency. Like once it gets into our pipes, we have there's an obligation for us to make sure that it gets delivered in an efficient way. And so 10 years ago, the district did its very first component analysis of water loss. We've been doing annual water loss audits for the last 10 years. And then we've done, again, another component analysis. And that second component analysis really let us know that there's a lot of opportunities with proactive leak detection. And that is essentially having a couple of staff out in the service area, listening for leaks at service lines and being proactive about identifying those leaks and getting them fixed before they surface. And so in 2019, we brought on 3 staff to perform that function. And ever since then, we've really been refining it. We're actually in the process now of doing, speaking of innovation, it's myself, our IT officer, and our director of innovation and finance have been working on developing a data, basically a centralized data lake. So we can take our AMI and our SCADA, our operational data, and our energy data and create pockets out in our distribution area. They're basically digital pockets where we can see water flowing in and water flowing out. And we're able to do mass balances at a much smaller scale than we have ever been able to do in the past. Right now, we have the technology to see water into the system, water out of the system as a whole, and we tend to do that once a year because that's all that's required by the state. But it takes a long time to get this data integration and these models built. But I'm hoping that by in a year or so, we'll be able to have at least 15 of those. We call them DMAs. They're district metered areas. But where you'll be able at a much smaller scale to see water in and water out. And with live data flowing into this model, you'll be able to do those mass balances on a weekly basis, monthly basis. And having that kind of insight, not just spatial insight, but that temporal insight, that's going to help us be much more strategic with our proactive leak detection team. Right now, the only insight they have is to be able to walk from service to service to service, A through Z, and then start back over again. But if we know that one area is 4 times leakier than another area, we can reassign their time and get more value out of having them basically listen to services in those areas that need the most, investigation. And that's really cutting edge.
Yeah. No, DMAs are not cutting edge in Europe, but they're cutting edge in the U.S. But really what they do are they're pressure zones where you break areas down into a specific pressure zone with data flowing, pressure and flow data flowing back to the operator. So that way you can manage your system much more efficiently.
Yeah, 100%. And the Europeans will tend to do it by actually physically hydraulically isolating their zones. But one of the beauties of our system is that we have a ton of redundancy, and the engineers and operators don't want to compromise their redundancy out in the system, to have the DMAs. So we're going to be developing digital DMAs. And so tracking the flow of water with live data as opposed to going out and hydraulically isolating those different pressure zones if we don't need to. And so we have a MOU with Aarhus Vand, a super progressive water agency in Denmark, and we've been working pretty extensively with them to learn how are they doing this? What are the best practices that Europe can share with Molten Nagel and others in California, so that way we can all excel together.
So it seems to me that when you reduce water loss and you reduce your carbon footprint, which is another way of saying you're reducing your energy, it sounds like you're also reducing the cost to the customer.
Oh, 100%.
Is that true?
Yeah, yes, that is. Yeah, if there's a way for us, see, part of the challenge is if there's a present cost, it's got to be borne by a ratepayer eventually. But if there's a way to mitigate costs such that they don't increase, or even better, if there's a way that we can reduce costs overall by efficiency interventions or renewable energy, or like what we're working with InPipe, with a micro hydro turbine, and we can actually generate energy and offset those bills, then that's a true win for the customer.
So talk to me a little bit about that, because as I understand it, it provides both pressure management and flow and pressure data, as well as renewable energy. How does that fit into your planning?
So we are in South Orange County. Where space is a premium, and it's a fairly wealthy community. We don't have a lot of excess land on any one of our sites where we could put in solar. I mean, we have some places we can put in solar, but not to the degree that we could ever be able to offset our costs in any tangible way. So one of the things that we looked at is InPipe. They have an InPipe actual, like you were saying, like a turbine that fires but also manages pressure. And where we are going to be using it is at our Bridlewood flow control facility. About 70% of the water that we import at Molten Miguel Water District flows through our Bridlewood flow control facility. It comes in around 185 or 190 psi, and we break it to 115. So we lose a lot of that pressure to just wasted heat. And so the idea would be we're going to install 2 of these turbines in 2 of our trains. That's going to be a 224 kilowatt system. We're expecting to generate over 800,000 kilowatt hours a year. And that's going to offset 5% of the district's total overall demand, just at that one little facility. And what I think is probably one of the more exciting parts to me about this is that facility runs 24/7. One of the constraints with solar and with wind is that they're intermittent renewable energy sources. And, around 4 o'clock, you're going to start not getting near the benefits from solar unless you've got batteries and other things that you've installed. But we're expecting to generate energy from this solution 24/7.
And that's the value of taking advantage of a resource like flowing water. You have a lot of things on your plate, and you're trying to do more. No, really, seriously. And one of the things I care a lot about is what holds utilities back. What are the challenges you face to bring innovations like the InPipe's pressure management microturbine project online internally and externally? Yeah. Because from what I hear, there's a lot. And I'm curious from your position, because you're not on the board, you're not the president and CEO of Molten Miguel. You're one of the people who's responsible for making things happen. Right.
Well, I'm very fortunate. I feel like Molten, we say they hire people with big hearts and big brains. And to your point, we also have we have a culture of innovation. I think one of the challenges that utilities face is that they don't have a sustainable resources officer. They don't have a director of innovation. We brought on data scientists to work with our staff, almost 8 years ago now. We're one of the founding agencies for the California Data Collaborative. We've just always been very invested in having the data, because you can't manage what you can't measure. And then really understanding analytics and getting more out of the systems that we invest in, whether it's SCADA or AMI or energy data. And if your organization is forward thinking and progressive, and they are, willing to bring on these types of staff, I really feel like it fosters this culture of not just innovation and sustainability, but it's very collegial. I don't know all this stuff by myself. My job is to facilitate bringing the best ideas out of our staff. So I work with engineers. I get to work with operators. I work with water resources folks. I work with finance. I get to work with everybody, and that is totally encouraged here. It's like a horizontal management structure. In fact, I think our leadership expects our staff to bring the best ideas out, and so we all really work together to do that.
So one of the things I've seen in at other utilities and recently is this issue of 2-year budget cycles and competing initiatives. That there's all these things in planning, and that somebody comes out like an inpipe, but there's plenty of different people out there coming up with innovations that they've gone through the tag system. They've been piloted, they've been proven safe, yet it's hard to bring out. It's hard to bring that and get it online. How does this all work? How do you overcome these kind of barriers when there are things ready to go that are so impactful for a utility?
Well, I can't speak for other shops, but I do know, here we do have to balance, there's affordability, and then there's investments in infrastructure. We have $1 billion of assets under the ground that nobody can see, and they need to be maintained and updated. And we even have, assets that are above the ground, like our vertical assets that need to be maintained. And so, we realize we can't do everything at once, but you also can't push innovation and sustainability to the back. You can't just keep delaying it and deferring it because you're going to get stuck in those same systems of practice that, led to higher costs in the long run. And so, I think, again, it comes back here at least to kind of a conscious effort to make sure that we're inclusive of new ideas and new technologies. It is helpful, too, when you're working with, like academic partners who are able to do pilots or test certain things. I think that's how we first found out about InPipe. We were working with UC Davis at the time. The Center for Water and Energy Efficiency had an affiliates program. And, they were able to kind of vet different technologies and almost act as like a personal shopper for us. They're like, hey, you got high pressures going through this system, and we found this really cool technology. We think you guys should take a look and talk to one another. And that's how we got connected. And I thought that was a really helpful service, which is why I like IL Utilities too. They do similar things for us.
Right. So that's their mission in life.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
So, they are. So, it sounds like you have fewer problems than others in that management has set the objectives and a strategy to ensure that your teams work together. So to the listeners here who maybe work in the water industry, maybe not, they're consumers, what recommendations, what suggestions do you have to them to what actions can they take to make a difference? And they are not in Molten Miguel. They could be anywhere in California, but we should ask them to take a role in this, because if we're all in this together, which is the message of conservation and efficiency in energy and efficiency of water, it's the same conversation. What do you think?
Well, I'll say I was really struck by an article that came out of UC Davis during the 2013-2016 drought. They did a study that said all of the water conservation that took place during that time period in response to the drought actually saved more energy overall for California than the complementary energy efficiency programs that were being run at the time. And so that's one thing we really tried to impress upon, like, our customers and just stakeholders, that when you reduce your water consumption, you're reducing implicitly your energy consumption. And
your rates.
Yeah, your rates. Yeah, exactly. Or you're at the very least delaying an investment in big infrastructure. Like because you want to right-size solutions, and we hear this a lot where there may be a utility out there that hasn't done as much as they could really with demand management, but they want to build a new treatment facility, and it's like, well, have you tried the cheapest approach, which is water conservation and actually getting to an efficient level of demands, and then reevaluating, do I really need that big of a treatment plant? Do I really need the treatment plant at all? So there's ways that I feel like water efficiency pays dividends, not just for avoiding capital or avoiding and delaying capital investment, but also for obviously energy saving.
It's reality. It's always been the case. And since we're all in this together and there's no new water, I think it's on all of us as consumers, as the end user, the ratepayer, to do our part, not to waste. And the same needs to be said to utilities, because they're part of the solution, they're part of the problem, and it varies from utility to utility. California is one of the few states in the country that regulates water loss. Not regulates water loss for the customer, but regulates water loss for the utility. And next week, Joaquin Esquivel will be on the Water Zone show to speak to. Joaquin is the chair of the California State Water Resources Control Board, and Joaquin's going to be speaking to regulations like water budgeting and water loss and tying it all together specific to the conversation about carbon. And I'm going to ask him what more he can do as a regulator to do more than just what they do. Hello?
No, we're here. That'll be awesome. We turned it over to you to do the session, so we appreciate that. And wonderful guest. She's what I call a wow woman, and that means a woman of water, just so I don't get in trouble with anybody.
There you go. You can get in real trouble.
Yeah.
You should have started with that.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's what I created that a couple of years ago, and Natasha Rankin from the Irrigation Association.
You get extra pay for that stuff?
No, but she comes on the show. She comes on the show a lot, and they're also a sponsor of the show, as AWWA and others, and Site One, and we're very proud of that. So, hey,
I really appreciate your creating this opportunity.
Yeah,
I think it's valuable information.
And we got more segments coming up, as you said, and we're happy to broadcast this to our listeners, and because they need to hear more stuff like this. They can't get it really from the newspapers or anyplace else. So we appreciate that. So again, thank you both for being on the show. We appreciate it. To all our listeners, thank you again. And one of the most important things that Chris and I say every single week to you, please help keep our planet blue.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. If you like green, you got to have blue. Good night, everyone.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters 1932.org.
NBC News Radio, I'm Scott Carr. A judge in Georgia has dismissed 2 criminal counts against former President Trump in his election interference case. Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee rules that prosecutors did not have the authority to bring those particular charges against Trump, related to his alleged filing false documents in a federal court. But McAfee's allowing the rest of the case to move forward, including 8 charges against Trump. He pled not guilty to racketeering and other charges related to his efforts to overturn his loss in Georgia in the 2020 election. After making landfall late yesterday in Louisiana, Francine is now a week into a tropical depression. There's still about 300,000 without power in the Pelican State. Now flooding, rain, and possibly tornadoes are expected across the south. New Orleans is still drying out. State climatologist Jay Grimes says that parts of the city got well more than a foot of rain. Now some residents are being told to not do laundry or wash dishes because some sewer pipes are overloaded.
Rains were a little more significant than what we expected. The storm did take a slight jog to the east. 2, it moved a little more slowly than we expected.
flooding threats remain for Tennessee and the lower Ohio valleys into parts of Alabama and Georgia. On the campaign trail in North Carolina today, Vice President Kamala Harris again called for a second debate with former President Trump. But just before Harris took the stage in Charlotte today, Trump said on his social media site there would not be a third presidential debate, claiming that polls clearly showed he won the debate, and he says the first words out of a prizefighter when they lose is, "I want a rematch." The actor Chad McQueen, the only surviving son of legendary actor Steve McQueen, has died at the age of 63. McQueen may be best known for playing Dutch in the original Karate Kid franchise. He died Wednesday at his home in Palm Desert, California. Scott Carr, NBC News Radio.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
What does it take to take on Alzheimer's? Awareness that nearly 2/3 of those diagnosed are women, including Black women. Dedication to lowering your risk by eating healthy and monitoring blood pressure. And